about 2 pages long, not real bad. Like the rec room. I remember the time he inquired about the rec room, where I went for fun and fellowship. I was hoping he would not ask me about that. There were certain associations and activities I wanted to keep for myself. I did not think Jesus would enjoy or approve of them. I evaded the question. However, one evening when I was on my way out with some of my buddies for a night on the town, he was at the door and stopped me with a glance. "Are you going out?" I answered, "Yes." "Good," he said. "I would like to go with you." "Oh," I replied rather awkwardly, "I don't think, Lord, that you would really enjoy where we are going. Let's go out together tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we can go to a Bible class or a social at the church, but tonight I have another engagement." "As you wish," was his comment, only I thought when I came into your house we were going to do everything together, be close companions. "Just know that I am willing to go with you." "Well," I said, "we'll go someplace together tomorrow night." That evening I spent some miserable hours. I felt rotten. What kind of a friend was I to Jesus, deliberately leaving him out of part of my life, doing things and going places that I knew very well he would not enjoy. When I returned that evening, there was a light in the room, his room, and I went to talk it over with him. I acknowledged, "Lord, I have learned my lesson. I know now I can't have a good time if you're not along. From now on, we will do everything together." Then we went down together into the rec room of the house. He transformed it. He brought new friendships, new excitement, new joys, laughter, and music have been ringing in the house ever since. With a twinkle in his eye, he smiled. "You thought that with me around you wouldn't have much fun, didn't you? Remember, I have come that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full." Quote from John 15, chapter 11. All righty. Now, the rec room, the recreation room, the entertainment room, the amusement room. Now, not necessarily a place in our house, right? But we take ourselves out of our houses and we go to these places, places of recreation and entertainment and amusement, to be able to have some recreation, to be amused, right? Mm-hmm. Because what? Why would we want to have those kind of things? Fun. To have fun. All right, so the question begs to be asked, what do you call your activities that you do that are not church related or not work related or not hobby related? What would you call them? Could you call them exercise?
Oh, I like to.
Oh, yeah.
Exercise?
I enjoy my exercise.
I mean, right.
If you walk, I mean, you enjoy walking, that's exercise good for your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not work.
That's right. And it's a time that I get to be out in the fresh air and walk up the hill and down the hill and pat old Hopper on the head every now and then. Tell him he's a good boy, and he'll look up and say, "You're a good boy too." If you had the ability to make a rec room, what would you do in your rec room? If money were no object. Somebody would have a golf simulator.
Yep.
Or a putting green.
Is that another request for a Christmas gift?
Yeah.
I'd have a big sewing room.
A big sewing room. I like that. Because sometimes a hobby can be a recreation activity. Certainly.
Supermax computer.
Oh, wow.
But
There you go. Not in the U.S.
they're not. And I don't mind the Lord growing in it all. I don't laugh because they don't show none of that bloodshed. You're just sinking ships. But
Yeah.
it's just a lot of fun.
If you're not at the house and you went out from the house for recreation, where would you go?
My goodness, I live a dull life.
To
mow the backfield.
Mow the back field. That's work. Something wrong with you.
That's fun.
I go to Carol and her house, I go to their house and visit.
Yeah.
I usually travel with my sister.
Uh-huh. Play Scrabble?
It's fun.
Travel, okay, yeah. Yeah, I like that, travel. What else would you do? It is a lot of things to think about. Let me read a quote that I copied off the internet. A.W. Tozer said this: fellowship, committees, and clubs are all right under the right circumstances. And this applies to whether you're in your study or a living room or your kitchen or your nursery or your dining room, the rec room, the bedroom. Think about what your activities are. Fellowship, committees, and clubs are all right under the right circumstances. Talking about in a spiritual setting.
Yeah.
A spiritual designation for the activity. But this kind of an answer to that kind of a problem presupposes that those who give the answer have misunderstood the problem, all right? There are three things they misunderstand. Number one, they misunderstand the nature of Christian faith. Christian faith is, and you all agree with this, it's inward. Christian faith is inward, not outward. It is the Spirit, it is of the Spirit and not of the flesh. The kingdom of God is within you. Christ dwells in your heart, and Christ in you, the hope of glory, Colossians 1:27, is the burning core for the Christian faith. So Christianity, the true Christian faith, is inward in nature. We are to be inwardly Christians. Let me say that again. We are to be inwardly Christians. It is inside, somewhere, in the spirit, soul, and heart, the inner person that we get into the rut. And when we get into that rut, I'll finish the quote in just a minute. When we get into that rut, then our inner man is no longer satisfied. Because the problem is inward, it is ridiculous to say, all right, the inner person, the spirit of me, the inner shrine of me is in a rut. It isn't where it ought to be, so let's eat something. Makes no sense, does it? So I think what Tozer is trying to get across is that Christianity is what happens inside of our spirit, because God saves our soul, lives inside of our heart, and Christianity is something that takes place spiritually inside of our soul being, the real us. This outward part is not the real us. The real us is inside our soul. And so whenever that we are not satisfied in our spirit, we're in a rut, we might as well go eat something. And the idea behind that, he's saying it's passive time spent not getting out of the rut, not doing anything. All right? We get this. I think our church and our people get this. We don't serve Christ in ritual or liturgy. We don't necessarily go by what the priest tells us to do. We live according to the way that Christ motivates us according to His Word. It's not going through the motions, because going through the motions, and this is what I said a month ago or so, that the older or longer you live for Christ, the less change you look for or expect in your walk with God. Because you get into a rut and expect not to be changed. And when you get to that place thinking that there's no change going to take place, then there's not going to be any change made. Because it's relationship. How often, and it's the same thing even though it's different, how often do you take your mate, your loved one, for granted? The same thing applies to Christ in our walk with Him, that we would take Him for granted. We get to the place, I know what He's going to say, I know what she's going to do, and sometimes when you're long enough with that person, you can finish what they begin to say. You know what they're thinking. And so it's relationship. But when that relationship grows stale, that's when you're in a rut and you don't expect any change. Someone said, well, I told her I married her when I loved her when I married her, and that's good enough. And then she said, that's true. He's not told me that in a long, long time. It's crazy, isn't it? But we get it. It's what Christ does in our heart. And as we pray every day, as we read every day, as we leave this sanctuary and go out into the world, and we mix among the people, and we don't change our walk, we don't change our disposition, our character, we don't hide Christ inside of us when we leave this place. We take Him with us. When we do that, we're not as liable or likely to get into a rut spiritually and take Him for granted. Because what happens? We keep our relationship with Him fresh and new. I often tell couples when they come for counseling, I said, whatever it was that attracted you to each other, keep doing it. Don't stop, you know. Because whatever it was that attracted you is something that they found in you that they enjoy. So if you were to stop doing it, well, once you got married, and then there's a certain amount of that that's going to get, wow, I didn't expect all of this, you know, kind of a thing. In our lives, our relationship with Christ works the same way.
Brother Rick, it reminds me of, when you're talking, that reminds me of Genesis, when God would come down and fellowship with Adam and Eve. They knew that He was coming and He was going to be there, just as time they did sin and hid themselves. Mm-hmm. And we know that He's there on a regular basis, like you said. When I used to be able to get out and walk like you do, it was just so close in relationship to Him, doing that on a regular basis. And you know, I just thought of Adam and Eve, how they got to share with Him every day. They can take a walk.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah, and a past study that we had, I believe that Adam and Eve looked forward to that time with God,
right,
until sin separated them, and God enjoyed that time fellowshipping with them until sin. And then they were gone. But God cared enough to go searching for them.
Yeah.
And calling out to them, where are you? Right? God knew where they were. He just wanted them to respond to His call. Alright? The very first part of it, page 19. I remember the time he inquired about the rec room. And I love the way that Munger puts a lot of this stuff and asks the questions and relates the story. Where I went for fun and fellowship. Now, of course, he's talking about not necessarily just in his house, but in his heart, the things that he allows from the world to come inside of his heart. Right? So, what jumps off of page 19 to anybody? Remember your homework? Find something in there and then kind of underline it or highlight it or something. Mark it on page 19. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Fun and fellowship was the things that I marked on that part right there. Fun and fellowship. Because I think that's the way God made us. But we would enjoy one another and enjoy doing things together. And Gary said, I hate to lose. The competition is fun. The loss is not so much fun, but the competition is good. You know, that we have to enjoy that. Right? So then he says, I was hoping that he would not ask me about that. Why do you think Munger says that? I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about the rec room, my amusements, my entertainment.
Because he already knew that he was doing something he wasn't supposed to, or it wouldn't be pleasing.
His heart condemned him, didn't it? Yeah. Yeah. What else?
We didn't necessarily want to give it up either.
Yes, I like that, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, what else?
Who he was hanging with, you know, we're talking.
Yeah, right, his
What
associations.
crowd,
Mhm.
you know, you hear people, oh, well, I'll change that person if I marry him, or
Mhm.
I'll change my buddy. You
Yeah.
know, even though I got saved, they didn't,
Uh-huh.
I'll change them. Unless God works in their heart and they change, they'll change you or pull you
Yeah.
in. Hey, can we go do this?
Mhm.
I'm not supposed to go there, but
Mhm.
okay, I'll go along, and then you're caught in the world.
Right.
And that's, to me, Jesus with us all the time,
Mhm.
right? That part there where it says, good, he said, I would like to go with you. Well, anywhere we go as a Christian, he
Mhm.
should be with us. You know, if there's something that you're watching on the television, it probably be turned on.
Mhm.
It's just, you know, whether it's a movie or whatever. You know, if it has a cuss word in it, what do you need to be hearing,
Mhm.
right? And then you gotta take, you can't
Yeah,
watch that.
right, right.
But that's part of recreation. How many people watch TV, or
Mhm.
how many people watch movies or whatever? If God's with us, then we're not gonna stand for it,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think that we have got so much where that we look for our idle time to be filled up with the television. And I think back 100 years ago, when they didn't have television, didn't have maybe radio, but if they had one, it was very little that they would pick up on it. That most of the family knew how to play an instrument or play the same instrument.
Yeah.
And they sang a lot, and they spent a lot of time together. And you can spend 5 hours a night with your mate and never speak to him.
Nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays you can. But of course that wasn't the norm back then, was it? And I was hoping you would not ask me about that. The things that you mentioned. And then there are certain association and activities I want to keep for myself. I don't want to give them up. I did not think Jesus would enjoy or approve of them. I evaded the question. All right, so I kind of highlighted that. I did not think Jesus would enjoy or approve of them. I evaded the question. If his heart was condemning him, then God was already condemning him, right? Yeah. Because if your heart condemns you, God's greater than your heart. So he was already troubled about it, and he didn't want to have to face it.
But isn't that God in the heart?
Yeah.
Well, I know, but I mean, you kind of like separated it, like, well, it was condemning of the heart, you know, but, you know, if he lives there, he's there. That's where he's at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Gary was talking about earlier. You know, as Christians,
I can't hear over here.
yes, as Christians, everywhere we go, Christ is with us. Yeah. And so he thought the idea in his thought process was, and again, I think we all get it, right? Spiritually, Christ is in us all the time as Christians. Right? I did not think Jesus would enjoy or approve of them. He was condemned in what he was doing. He was troubled by it. And he didn't want to give it up. So I evaded the question. There are certain, what is the difference between enjoy or approve in that? I don't think Jesus would enjoy or approve. What's the difference between enjoy and approve?
If you don't approve of something, you don't enjoy it. You stay away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I'm arguing with Munger right now. Yeah. Or a backslash, would enjoy and or approve of them. To enjoy or approve I'm kind of like Lou. If you don't approve of it, it's going to be hard to enjoy it. And then later on, he spent the night doing what he would do. Then he comes back. He said, you know, I had some miserable hours. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't all that much fun. However, one evening when I was on my way out with some of my buddies for a night in the town. What do you mean by a night on the town? What do you think about a night on the town? What is a night on the town?
Drinking, party drinking, looking for women.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
whatever,
Mm.
fun stuff.
Yeah.
Night clubbing.
Doing unwholesome stuff, huh?
Yep.
Non-virtuous things.
Definitely not looking for a mate.
Right. Right. All right. He was at the door and stopped me with a glance. So the way Mama puts this, I'm getting ready to go out and Jesus sees me and he stops me with his glance. Now we've all had glances that stop us or do something to us, haven't we? I mean, your parents may have corrected you and straightened you out with a glance. Karen Lavender used to say he'd turn around, talking about Wayne, he'd turn around and give me that look, and I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this fact that when he looked at him, he would see himself in his eyes. I think of the scripture where it says when a man sees his reflection in a mirror, then he leaves and forgets who he is.
Yeah, James, yeah.
And so, you know, that there was bringing right to your attention, just as Peter, when he looked at Jesus, glanced at him, and then.
Okay, that's a good thought. Do you think he saw his reflection in Jesus' eyes and recognized what he was supposed to be?
And not there. Like
We
a
look
mirror.
into the perfect law of liberty.
Yeah.
And so I love this next part. I underlined this as well. Did you? Are you going out? Well, of course I'm going out. I stopped at the door, right? And if it hadn't been for you here, I'd already been gone. I answered yes. Good. He said, I would like to go with you.
I underline that.
Yeah. I would like to go with you. Yeah, I'd like to go with you. I would like to go with you. So, if Jesus would enjoy it, we would enjoy it. If Jesus wouldn't enjoy it, we wouldn't enjoy it
Mind us.
as Christians. Now, I don't know what Munger's background is, what his religious ideas are, and his background, stuff like that. But you think about it, whenever that he relates this story, talking about, I'm going to go out, and, well, Jesus said, well, I'll go with you. I'd enjoy that, being with you, kind of a thing. And so, I wrote on my paper, that's up, you know. Oh, wow, we're going to go out and we're going to spend time together. Good. It kind of reminds me of Copper whenever I get ready to go on a walk and he sees me put on my boots. He knows we're going somewhere. Not me, we're going somewhere. And so sometimes I'll tease him and I'll get him all strapped in his harness and I'll go out the door and leave him inside. And I'll look through him at the door. But I'll come back in and take him with me.
One day he's gonna bite you.
So you're going to bite me. So yeah, and I relate that to that, a child that wants to go with his dad. You know, I'm going to go out. Well, let me go. I want to go too. You know, no, you can't go this time. Kind of a thing. His wanting to go and leave Jesus out was what? Rejection.
Oh, of course,
Yeah. Where are you going? I would like to go with you. Oh, I replied rather awkwardly, I don't think, Lord, that you would really enjoy where we're going. I underlined that you. Now, I'm going to enjoy it, but I don't think that you would enjoy it. And we shouldn't enjoy it if Christ wouldn't enjoy it as well. All right? I think you would really enjoy where we're going. Let's go out together tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we can go to a Bible class or a social at the church, but tonight I have another engagement.
I thought that was interesting.
Yes.
Why would he assume that God could only enjoy a Bible study or something like that? He enjoys people, communicating with people and showing the Christian way to people outside the Bible study. So I found that very interesting, that part right there, that he would assume that.
Right. Yeah, tomorrow night we'll go out. We'll go to a Bible study or a social at the church, where there's a lot of Christian people. Now, I read into that where I'm going tonight, there's not going to be no Bible study, and there's not going to be no church people.
And unfortunately, don't you think people today think that same way? That all we do is go to Bible study and dinners and church.
Yeah.
And that's the only fun we ever have.
Right, yeah.
Wrong.
Right. Yeah, the only fun we have is listening to the teacher and the preacher and the singing, and I put money in the offering plate, and then we go back home.
No.
There's no way, this is how I wrote this out, there's no way that any of us would even imagine telling, speaking, wording the Jesus inside of us, not tonight, maybe tomorrow. I can't imagine anyone ever thinking that. Jesus is at the door, we're ready to go out. He said, I'm going to go with you. And he said, no, wait. Probably best if we wait until tomorrow night. I got this going on tonight, but me and you will go out tomorrow night. There's no way that we'd ever tell him that. Right? Would you tell him that? Raise your hand.
No.
And we do. That's exactly what we tell him, without words. When we go and do something we know he wouldn't enjoy, that he'd rather us not be a part of. That's the same, he reads what our thoughts are. He knows. We're not pulling anything over on him. Might as well be honest. Honest with God.
Because he's going anyway.
He's going anyway. Yeah. You can fool your mom and your dad, but you can't fool God.
And you can sort of relate that to, hey, I'm going to go do this, but I'm not going to read God's word, or I'm not going to pray, or I'm not going to, I'm going to go out, I don't got time for you. We sort of, as Christians, sometimes compartmentalize our lives. Well, this part is God's, Sunday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, work, and then I do what I want. That's just the way the world is today.
Yeah.
You don't have time for God. Well, I talked Sunday about stealing, and not just necessarily stealing for money, tithes and offering, but our time. He gives us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
This month, at this point, a lot of us, we won't come right out and say that, what you just said, but we're gonna maybe not read today, or maybe not do this that we should be doing, we're gonna do this instead. We make choices, sometimes not good ones.
We may not tell him we don't have no time for him tonight, but that's what we're doing when we go someplace without him. All right, I like this next part. As you wish with this comment, only I thought when I came into your house, we were going to do everything together, and that really bothered me. I underlined that and I made mention of it to myself. I thought whenever I came into your house, we were going to do everything together, be close companions. I thought we were going to do everything together. In fact, as a couple have already said, that's exactly what you're doing. Everything you do with Jesus. Every place you go, everything that you hear, everything that you see, he's right there in the mix.
I underlined as you wish, because it's our choice. We choose how much we incorporate him into our lives, and it's up to us. He doesn't make us.
Yeah, right, right.
So,
Yeah, I like that leads well into this other part. Well, I said we'll go someplace together tomorrow night. The evening I spent some miserable hours. I felt rotten. What kind of a friend was I to Jesus, deliberately leaving out a part of my life, doing things and going places that I knew very well he would not enjoy? Miserable hours. And rightfully so. Do you agree? They should be miserable hours. I lean a lot on relationship and husband and wife, close boyfriend, girlfriend, kind of relationships. That whenever that you're doing something that is inappropriate or not right, you don't want your mate going, you're rejecting them, or your close boyfriend or girlfriend, you're rejecting them, and you're telling them that there's a part of my life that is not going to be a part of yours. And that rejecting part of it. And it goes back to the idea of, I thought we were going to do everything together. Well, a husband or a wife shouldn't go anywhere that his wife or husband should not be allowed to go, or would feel out of place going for most anything. When I returned in the evening, there was a light on in his room. I went up to talk it over with him. I went up to talk it over with him. And so he's doing what now? He's remorsefully repenting, isn't he? That's what it spoke to me about. When I returned in the evening, there was a light on his room, and I went up to talk it over with him. Not to talk with him, but to talk it over with him. So he's troubled at the way he felt. And he wants to clear the air, doesn't he? I acknowledge, Lord, I have learned my lesson. Do you think Munger learned it?
That time he did.
That time he did. Why not all the time?
We get caught up, we forget, we get busy.
Yeah. The next time, boy, I'm on fire for God right now, boy. I can split mountains and walk across them. I can walk on water. And things get away, your mind gets on something else, and the cares and toils of this life enter in, and maybe sickness and disappointment or tribulation, something is going to get your mind off of the Lord, and the next thing you know, you're not going to be able to walk through mountains or on water anymore, right? I know now I can't have a good time if you're not along. Really, really, truly, as Christians, we cannot have a good time if we're at places or involved in something that God would not want to be involved with.
Brother Rick, that's why it's always behooved me how Lot, vexing his righteous soul, remained there at that city. I mean, I'm sorry, God speaks to you, the Lord speaks to you when you're in a place and you get around sometimes where you do vex your soul, around people that you worked with and you can't get away from it. But him just continually wanting to live there, knowing the conditions around him day by day, I can't fathom and I cannot understand and never will.
I read quite a bit in that today, that very story, in fact. And I also, what did it mean by righteous Lot? And it means just Lot, the religious Lot. Lot didn't enjoy being in Sodom and Gomorrah.
He couldn't.
But he evidently felt that he had to be there because of the well-watered plains of Jordan and making a big amount of money. Excuse me. The thought I had was, when we left Cleveland, Ohio, and moved to Alabama, all the boys were little. Jeremy, of course, the smallest. And we went to Alabama. Busing had started in Cleveland, Ohio, and they took kids from the west side and far west side 2 hours before school, put them on a bus, and went way over onto the east side and dropped them off. And then took black kids out of over on the east side and drove them all the way over to the far west side to integrate the schools. Now the idea was good, but it was called forced busing. And it made it made what is, I don't know if you ever heard the term, white flight. Yeah, where people left the inner city and moved to the suburbs to get out of the busing area. And so when we left Cleveland, we didn't want our kids 2 hours away from us in school when there was 10 or 15 minutes close by, where that if anything happened, we could be right there if they needed us. But they were over 2 hours. And some of my brother's family, they were part of that. They were shipped. They were the only white kid in an entirely black school, practically. And they took these kids and put them in practically all white schools, these black kids. Nobody was comfortable. Nobody was happy. Race riots started. It was just war. It wasn't any good. But there's man's idea to change the way we think by doing something like that. And it didn't work. So when we left Cleveland, we didn't want to have our kids involved in that, so we moved to Alabama. We took white flight and an airline and left, instead of just moving into the suburbs. And so the way that we might engineer things is not always the best to work it out. And that's what Munger had in mind. I can't have a good time, and we can't do everything together. If I can't have a good time, it's not going to work. All right, then he went down together into the rec room, we went, of the house. He transformed it. Now, this to me sounds like salvation, but it may also be for a person's rededicating their life to the Lord. Because he transformed it. He changed it brand new. He brought new friendships, new excitement, new joys. Laughter and music have been ringing in the house ever since. And truly, would you not agree with me that when you become a Christian, you get close to God, your life changes 180% change. Different. The places that you used to go, the things that you used to be involved in that were worldly, you no longer felt comfortable in them. And I tried to hang around with my friends after I got saved that went to places and did things. And little by little, because of their language and the places they wanted to go and the things they involved in, I just could not go anymore. I mean, my spirit was just vexed by the filthy conversation of the wicked every day. And it was not something I could do anymore. And so, yeah, my friendship changed, my excitement, my joys, all of that changed. Then with a twinkle in his eye, he smiled. You thought that with me around, you wouldn't have much fun, didn't you? Remember, I have come that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full, and may remain. All right, so Lou mentioned a while ago about being able to have fun as a Christian and to enjoy the things. We have changed a lot of the things that we used to do to things, as I mentioned Sunday, that are more joyful, more constructive, and not destructive. They lift us up. They're good for our health. They're good for our environment. They're good for our relationships. So when Christ comes in, he makes everything better. He doesn't take away and hurt things. He makes them all better. And that's why I've said in preaching that if everybody lived like a Christian, what a wonderful world this would be.
Amen.
It'd be fantastic if everybody was a Christian, but if we just lived like it, because that's the best life there is to live, right? All right, anyone have anything you want to mention on any of the study we went through? All right, the bedroom is next. It's not all that long, about as